right. Good morning, Nigeria. Today we are discussing Democracy Day, and to have the conversation for this year's edition of Democracy Day, let's get a background report as put together by correspondent Oyemi Ajayi.
Democracy Day in Nigeria is observed annually as a public holiday to mark the end of the military rule in Nigeria and return to elected civilian government, which happened on May 29, 1999. However, on June 6, 2018, 8 days after May 29, 2018, had been celebrated as Democracy Day, former President Buhari changed Democracy Day to June 12 in commemoration of the June 12, 1993 general elections adjudged to be Nigeria's freest and fairest elections, and in honor of the presumed winner of that election, late Chief MKO Abiola. Analysts believe that June 12, more than any other date in Nigeria's history, symbolizes Nigeria's quest for democratic principles, values, and experience. Others are of the view that Nigeria's democratic journey has, like in many other climes, encountered both stormy and smooth sails, but Nigerians have remained resilient, opting always for democratic governance. This year's Democracy Day celebration is coming on the heels of Nigeria's 7th consecutive civilian transition, which saw Bola Ahmed Tinubu sworn in as the 16th President and Commander-in-Chief of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. The Secretary to the Government of the Federation, George Akume, indicated at the World Press Conference that this year's democracy celebration will be low-key to reflect on the sacrifices of Nigeria's heroes of democracy. And earlier this morning, President Bola Tinubu addressed the nation on the occasion, taking stock on how the country has fared so far and highlighting the need to sustain the gains. Therefore, this year's June 12 Democracy celebration offers opportunity to reflect on the milestones covered and look forward to a better future. Looking at Nigeria's democracy, can we boldly say that the labors of the heroes of democracy have not been in vain? Guest on Good Morning Nigeria will discuss the 2023 Democracy Day celebration shortly.
All right, that was a backgrounder to our conversation this morning on the 2023 Democracy Day celebration. We have here with us in the studios Professor Victor Adetula. He is a professor of political science at the University of Jos. Prof, we're glad to have you this morning.
Good morning.
Okay. Also here with us is Honorable Adamu Mohammed, a lawyer and former majority leader of the Kogi State House of Assembly. Honorable Adamu Mohammed, welcome to Good Morning Nigeria.
Good morning, Nigerian.
All right, and from our Lagos Network Center, we have Dr. Abiola Akiyode Afolabi, founder, Women Advocates Research and Documentation Center, and former chairman, Transition Monitoring Group. We thank you for joining us this morning, madam.
Pleasure to be here.
Also from our Benin Network Center, we are being joined by Tony Abolo. Mr. Abolo is a veteran broadcaster, sociologist, and media consultant. It's a pleasure having you this morning with us.
Thank you very much. Glad to be here.
All right, once again, we welcome all our guests to this program, and it's a bit tight. Of course, we knew we listened to the President's nationwide broadcast from about 7 o'clock, and a number of issues that the President touched on. This is his first Democracy Day broadcast. So we'll begin our conversation by taking a look at what the President passed on to Nigerians in the course of his address. Let's begin with Professor Victor Adetula. Listening to President Bola Ahmed Tinubu and his broadcasts, fit for purpose?
Of course, President Tinubu has been able to take Nigerians through the history of how this emerged and where we are today, which is very, very useful, especially in this era where history is not being emphasized in our schools. But apart from putting the issue in proper historical context. The point that the speech also underscored the importance of the notion of democracy as service, opportunity to provide service for the people to be satisfied. I think that's very, very important. And coming very early in the new administration, I think it suggests something to expect, and even possibly a framework with which to measure the performance of the new administration.
All right. Let me go to Lagos and bring in Dr. Afolabi. And now you listened to Mr. President, and I would like you to look at the different aspects of his comments this morning. What is it for you in this address delivered by the President of Nigeria, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu?
Thank you very much. I think this address is very important, especially because today it's going to be the 30th years, and I could remember that I was still a student, a final year student at the University of Obafemi Awolowo University, Ife, and I was a students' union leader. So it brought a lot of thoughts back to me. I'm particularly interested in, I think, the paragraph 17 of his speech, where he talked about the issue of farewell to poverty, and where he emphasized the need for equity, justice, and the need for us to support social justice, in the country. And looking at where we are currently today, I believe that those are important words for Nigerians. We have become like a poverty state, of the world. So it becomes very important, for us to take the issue of equity, justice, and address the issue of poverty. MKO Abiola's mantra at that time was abrogation of poverty. And if we look at where we are today, that's an important thing, moving forward from the last elections.
Thank you very much, Dr. Akiode Afolabi, for your initial intervention. Let's also go over to our Benin Network Center, where veteran broadcaster Tony Abolo was introduced a moment ago. Mr. Abolo, today, of course, is the 30th anniversary of the June 12, 1993 presidential election. That is now a Democracy Day, and the president, of course, linked up all the issues. In your opinion, what are the highlights and memorable points to take away from his broadcast?
For me, I think the real takeaway would be maybe 2-3 things. One is the emphasis on fairness, equity, and justice. Because if there is anything we are all screaming about in this country, is that we don't seem to be getting a fair deal from our governments. And therefore, if he makes that point and emphasizes it, I think he would like us to concentrate on how he wants to run his administration, and that there will be no dictation, and there will be no attempt to swarm down on people. Rather, there will be inclusion. So I think that's a major thing to take away. And again, we'll hold him accountable going forward if he doesn't keep to his words. But I like to take him for his word. Everybody keeps saying that President Tinubu is a man of his word. So we'd like to take him up on that. Then secondly, the emphasis on focusing on the people. And focusing on the people means a bit, I think himself is like an Awolowo brought up person. And in those days of UPN, the emphasis was on man. Man was at the center point of development, way back in the 60s and in the 70s. And I think he wants to recreate that kind of energy in the country, where poverty is addressed, development is addressed frontally, and we will see that going forward, it will be a better country. I think that's my takeaway from the president's address, and then urging us to keep making the democracy that we now have. At least we call it a democracy. Let's make the democracy work. And if we all engage together, then I think it will be a better country.
Back here to the studio, Honorable Adamu Mohammed, former Majority Leader at Kogi State House of Assembly. Now, we've had the broadcast on Democracy Day by previous presidents of Nigeria. This morning, we've just heard from the 5th president of Nigeria since 1999, in the person of President Ahmed Bola Tinubu, speaking to Nigerians on Democracy Day. What has he said that is different from what you used to hear on Democracy Day?
Thank you very much. His presentation was very, very comprehensive. The political link from 1999 till date, about 30 years, shows that he has been a dramatic person in the political development of Nigeria. When you talk about equity and fairness, when you talk about poverty, to address the problem, major problem we're having in the country today, there is a gulf between the governed and the government in Nigeria. And as an experienced politician, the difference is very, very clear. His presentation, if you compare with the past president, it shows that he's a core politician. Out of the presidents we have had so far, this is one man that has been in politics and has never left politics. Since the time he became a senator in the Third Republic, became a governor in this republic, and he has hand in almost everything that is happening in politics in Nigeria. It shows that he's a man that knows our problem. Knowing your problem is about 50% to us solving it. I think it gives me courage that we'll be there by the grace of God. He needs support of everybody. As my colleague said, he should be ready to be questioned in due course. Because this is the beginning. And Nigeria cannot be taken for granted. If you promise, you have to really fulfill your promise.
Honorable Adamu Mohammed, thank you very much. But I hope we don't fall into the error of assuming that everything about democracy rests, on the shoulders solely of the president. Which leads me to my next question to Professor Victor Adetula. And I'll frame the question as follows. I want to borrow from the title of a lecture that was delivered by the late Professor Claude Ake when he gave the Guardian lecture in the early 90s. And the title of his lecture was, "Is Africa Democratizing?" There was a wave of democracy at that time following the national conferences in the Francophone part of the continent. And I would ask, 24 years on, is Nigeria democratizing?
That's a huge one, very huge one. Maybe we should start by putting it even in a global context and said, is the world democratizing? And if we say that, evidence has shown that there is a serious retreat globally, across the world. But be that as it may, let's now zero on Nigeria and the specificity in our own situation. Well, one thing is to argue and say that, look, it's a work in progress, and therefore the need for celebration. Okay, if you look at the location of Nigeria within the West Africa sub-region, that while some countries are reversing to military rule and other forms of unconstitutional change of government, Nigeria remains a democracy, so to speak. But beyond that, there are issues that we need to address. And if we identify a number of indicators one may feel very, very sad. The dominant political culture is not reflecting democracy. I mean, if you even look at what is happening, we are still battling with issues of region ticket, religion ticket. I mean, that does not say so much. How are our institution of governance performing? What about service delivery, public good to the people? If we identify these are key indicators of democracy, we are still not there. There are a lot of surveys that suggest Nigeria love democracy, but Nigerians want good governance, which broadly translate to effective delivery of services. So many Nigerians don't care, is it federal government, is it unitary government? Their key measure of performance is food on the table, I'm able to take my children to school, I'm able to take them to hospital and get those services. Unfortunately, democracy or the practice of democracy in our country today either has not fully reflects that or still working towards that.
Oh, okay, I think you're trying to be modest about this, you know, but it's very clear that you've said that we're not there yet. It's not yet to who. In fact, the work is still in progress. I mean, in the real sense of it, that's coming from a political scientist, and I'm clear that you understand what you're talking about. If we continue on that line, it will be a very broad and wide area of conversation. So let's terminate it there temporarily, and then we return to Lagos, where we have Dr. Afolabi. Once more, you know, in the speech by the president, he mentioned Abiola several times. And that's because he made reference to a man who changed the course of history of our politics in this country. The man whom I may describe as an enigma. You know, he came when people least expected him to come. And he won landslide, north, south, east and west. Religion, not necessary. Ethnic group, not necessary. Nobody has done that in Africa anyways. And so I'm not surprised the way the president made reference to this personality. But now, what have we learned, especially the key stakeholders in the political terrain of Nigeria? What have we learned when we can't even organize an election, right, which Abiola cleared and showed people how to win election? He even had the Muslim tickets, but it never mattered then. But today we are still struggling with election, even though government election is war. Councillorship election is war. Everything is a battle. Are we learning from this man in question, whom we are celebrating today? Have Nigerian politicians learned anything in your understanding? I wanted to key in from what Dr. just said here, Prof. just said here, in connection with the reality of democratizing Nigeria.
Well, I really don't think we have actually learned a lot. I want to be very frank here. Given the fact that in 1993, it was significant to us and quite significant to political history of Nigeria. It's a day that we recognize as a day when we all came together as Nigerians, united, you know, to protect a particular mandate. And that went on, you know, from 1993 until 1999. You know, Nigerians were still dying because they believed that that mandate, you know, must be protected. And that was important, you know, that was important to us. And if you circle back on that and you look at where we are today, then we ask ourselves several questions. And that's why the question about are we democratizing? It's a very important question, you know, especially when we look at, as of today, there are issues issues of electoral integrity that we are yet to solve. So even in places where we think we have made a move, constitution review, electoral act, and all of that, we have not seen, the benefit of those, small move that we have made, as a country. And it talks to a whole lot of things. It talks to the systemic corruption in this country, the governance structure that we have, the kind of system and institutions that we are operating. While there has been a lot of talk about, addressing some of these problems, we are not seeing results. So there seems to be a disconnect, with where we are up to be and where we are. And I think that's why it's important for us, to reflect today, because it's a good day for reflection. So 1993 up to now, the aspirations, the hopes of Nigerians, have we been able to achieve that? I would say no. I would say no. So there are a lot of things that the current government needs to do. It's important that the government is emphasizing on the issue of social justice, which is one of the basis, for any country to be able to move forward. There are issues of regionalization. It has come more. In 1993, we were united. But today, I cannot talk about that unity, that we are talking about. The whole country is falling apart. And that's why democracy is supposed to involve, government of the people by the people. So there is a disconnect between the government, and the people. So it is really a source of concern coming from where I am as a civil society actor and as someone who also works, with the people. The people are not satisfied. So it is important that we go back to that spirit of unity, of harmony, of togetherness, of abrogation of poverty. Nigerians are suffering. So I'm not going to say that, democracy has actually paid up for us as Nigerians. So we still have, a lot to do. And this is a clarion call. Yes, we will hold him accountable, to his words. But Nigerians are also wiser. We're also for it. So we are stronger, despite, our very many problems.
Thank you very much, Dr. Abiola, for your intervention yet again. Now, back to Tony Abolo in our Benin Network Center to ask the question whether we have learned lessons from what happened 30 years ago, would equally lead to the question whether Nigeria is truly democratizing.
Thank you very much. I listened carefully to Prof. I listened to Dr. Abiola, who was very, very passionate in trying to look at this same issue. Sadly, the lessons were very deep 30 years ago today. And maybe I should make a comparison with what the United Nations does. You have a United Nations Day for maybe human rights, United Nations Day for anti-slavery, anti-violence against women. And there's a reason for that. And that is exactly how we have to link June 12th with our historical lessons and classes and teaching and civil rights activism, which is that on that day 30 years ago, and I recall it very vividly myself because I had to go and vote. I mean, then I didn't have a car, but I had to come all the way to go to Abuja Hill, to the army barracks of all places. We were very vehement about pulling out the military. So we went to say, look, for once, thank God. I'm not looking at anybody's religion. I'm not looking at anybody's tribe. And we're looking at one thing, and that was Nigeria. And after that, too many intervening happenings and the style of governance, and to quote the Prof. Adetola, which is that, is the service delivery. Are we getting any service delivery? It is turning Nigerians off governance and making us disconnected with the leadership. Therefore, I don't know who should be learning the lesson. Like, I think there was this, during the paper review, I think it was Abuja was making that reference. Whether you go to any market, you'll see an Hausa, an Igbo, an Efik, and everybody's all there. That is unity. And like Dr. Abiola decried, that you cannot even talk about that unity. So that kind of unity of purpose, and we're focused on getting this country out of the doldrum. And sometimes people tend to forget, why did we leave the parliamentary system to go to the presidential system? It was to cure ethnicity, tribalism, nepotism, and all those things we found very negatives way back in the 60s. And those things that led to the first coup of 1966. And so when we moved into the presidential system, we're looking for a strong arm that can harness all of us. And therefore, when we now found it in 1993, we said, thank God we've moved somewhere. And we wish that that is the lesson we have learned. But we are not teaching it, we're not experiencing it either from governance. Then I don't know, maybe I should ask, who should be able to implement this? Is it we the people or those in governance? And I think some beginning points could be like removing all those things you put in the forms. Which is your state? What is your regional state? Go and get a letter from your local government. Those are the things that take us back. And somebody was quoting what the vice president said, talking about how they're going to select who is going to be the Senate president. It's time to get a Christian. Such languages are just not there. Can we imitate Rwanda? Everybody's a Rwandese. There's no such thing as a Tutsi or a Hutu. Can't we begin to learn that in Nigeria? Isn't it not time? So it is going to be the leaders must show the example. Then those in the political class must show the example. And they should no longer use ethnicity and religion to begin to get power. Because that's where this confusion starts. Because you are driving into those primordial sentiments. And when you drive into those primordial sentiments, people easily fall back into those things. It's so easy because we are tribal in nature, and that's our sentimental feelings. So I like to believe that the leaders and the political class should change their style of governance, and we the people will begin to follow. So it is going to be leadership, and then we'll begin to imitate and follow a better example. And teaching of unity, lack of ethnicity in our conceptions and thinking, lack of religion thinking in our behavior, all that should be abrogated. Then we can now move forward.
You're quite on point. I'm sure many Nigerians will agree with your submission this morning, because it's just very realistic. Sometimes things like I began to wonder how we dabbled, if I may use that word, into the presidential system of government, whether it's a cause or something, because like he said, we were running away from what led to the 1966 coup by moving from parliamentary to the presidential. But what we're running away from is what we ended up creating. Because, of course, ethnicity is on the high side now in terms of our politics and what have you. So when, Andy Young of the former US UN and Jimmy Carter in the 70s came around and Nigeria bought it, I was wondering, our thoughts were good for a better deal. But today, I'm not sure we're doing it the way they are practicing it over there in the US. And now let me return to Adamu here with us, who was a member of House of Assembly. So he's a practical Nigerian politician. I started hearing about the dividend of democracy. Came into our lexicon, if I'm right, somewhere around 2002. I heard from Chimaroke Naman, the governor of my state then, in Abuja. He was delivering lectures here and there. And he really promoted this dividends of democracy. And we're beginning to,
It was Jerry Gunner who first founded it.
Yeah.
2001.
Okay.
Yes, Jerry Gunner, yes.
Now,
federal level. Yeah.
Fine. So, we're beginning to wonder, what is that dividend we're talking about? We are 24 years old in this practice, and we're talking about dividends and stuff like that. I mean, we know what is on in many sectors: power, water, even oil, which we have in abundance that we couldn't refine, and a lot of other issues. Now, are we getting dividend of democracy? When will it be right for Nigerians to begin to believe that, look, yes, we have a government that delivers?
Let me start by saying that if you talk about democracy myself, strictly speaking, strictly sensu, if you look at the norms of democracy, there is no democracy. What we have is a civil government. And talking about dividends of democracy should be service delivered to the people who are the real owner of the state or the government. But I can tell you that if we talk about electricity, it is getting worse day by day. Where I live, in my house in Abuja here, in 2011, 2012, 2013, I could stay in my house for 2 weeks with light constant. But today, if there is a sign of rain anywhere, there is no light. Are we progressing or are we retrogressing? If you talk about road, traveling from here to my village, Abujikolo in Kogi State, is more tortuous now than in the 90s when I was, early 90s when I was practicing as a lawyer here. And it was, that time it was during military era. It was easier for me to travel because the roads were better. Most of our political giants in Kogi State died on Abuja Lokoja Road because of lack of good road. Achem, we talk about Dr. Achema, Stephen Achema. You talk about A.T. Ahmed. These were our political giants in Kogi State. They died on that road because of poor road network. Where is the dividend of democracy? There is a place, Ankpa in Kogi State. From Ankpa to my village is 54 kilometers. In those days, my mother is from Ankpa. My father is from Abujikolo. I used to travel from Ankpa to Abujikolo 25 minutes. But now it takes me about 5 hours. That is at the local level. Where is the dividend of democracy? I attended LGA primary school, government secondary school in my place. None of my children has attended. I have about 2 graduates. None of them has attended any public school. Where is the dividend of democracy? Where is rule of law? When you talk about election, democracy presupposes that there should be periodic election. We are having periodic election, but if you take my state as a microcosm as an example today, what is happening there is war. The meaning of democracy there is radically different. I was discussing with the professor, and I came across one term recently with apology to the professor. I call it kakistocracy. Government by the people that don't deserve to be. They don't have what they were without, what it takes to be in government. That is the meaning of that term. If you go to Kogi State, you see enough of it. That is direct opposite democracy. We can't conduct election. If somebody will sit down to write the name of people that are going to contest election, the Speaker of the State Assembly will be appointed. The principal officers are appointed. Is it democracy? People desire more than that.
Well, Honorable Adamo, it turns out that there's no other person from Kogi here, maybe from the other side, to also respond to the issues that you are raising. But the points that you have highlighted are noted. And that's why I want to bring in again Professor Victor Adetula. Victor Adetula, I know when you were responding to the question of whether or not we are democratizing, you ticked off some of the indicators. Service delivery being one of them. And of course, you can rephrase that as my colleague here said about dividends of democracy, which is what Honorable Adamo was talking about. We are seeing in some places low quality services being rendered. And when we say government, we often, of course, we have to use the plural form because we have 3 forms of government, or 3 layers of government, if you like, not 3 forms of government. At the federal level, at the state level, and at the local government level. And that leads me to one point that I would like you to also dwell on. As, again, part of the lessons from 30 years ago. Do our political actors, more particularly the political class, recognize that democracy has its essence rather than just being an opportunity for power grab?
Yes. It's possible to argue that there is ignorance or lack of in-depth understanding of democracy. And because of that, it disposes the actors, so to speak, with this minimalist construction of democracy as election, as grab of power, or who is there from my ethnic group, who is there from my religious group or my clan. That is also part of the explanation. But another thing is to expand a little bit to say that, look, it's not about ignorance. It's just I'm very careful to use the word class. It's a class interest that, look, we want to go there and perpetuate ourselves for our own self alone. But let us look broadly where we are in the country in terms of the quality of our so-called leaders, either in terms of their moral credentials, even in terms of their understanding, their social consciousness. If we put all together, we possibly will be able to explain why they are doing what they, because there are some of the things that are unthinkable, that you start wondering that why is this like this? But I hasten to add that it's a collective responsibility. And for us to redress the situation, there is a lot of things that need to be done, even at the very tender age of early socialization. Because we possibly think it is now that we can ask for dividend of democracy. What is the conception of dividend of democracy to the toddler today? And you talk briefly about the layers of government. Again, I go back to service delivery as the key thing, the people and service delivery. The people in my local government, in my town, don't know what or care less about, is it local government or is it state government or is it federal government that is responsible for that road. All they want to see is good road. It is for the convenience of governance that the various institutions will now say, okay, for effectiveness, this will be state government responsibility. This is the local government. But when it comes to the people, they want to see the working together of these layers of government to produce results. That result is not there. And it's convenient for the ruling elite to say, oh, this is not our responsibility. That road belongs to state government. But to the people continue to suffer.
Okay. Thank you, Prof. As a matter of fact, you've just raised a very crucial point there. When my colleague was talking about the layers of government in Nigeria, and we were talking about democracy here, where the local government system is in comatose. This is where Houses of Assembly are just rubber stamps. This is a place where the judiciary does not have autonomy. And all of that. I mean, there are a series of things. We say constitutional amendment and what have you. We don't know which is which, reforms and all that. So we're going to take a short break now. When we come back, we have to continue with this conversation. And of course, we're going to move to another specific area of concern with respect to Democracy Day celebration. Do stay with us.
Nigeria means unity.
Nigeria means freedom to me.
Nigeria means greatness to me.
Nigeria is indivisible. There is nothing you can do. We all have to savage it together and learn to love each other. We are indivisible.
As a mother and a leader, I will always preach for peace and unity in this country, because that is the only thing that will give us progress.
Though tribes and tongues may differ, in brotherhood we stand. And it is the woman that does that.
Your skill is key to your professional growth in the competitive broadcast media industry. Take advantage of the following programs specially packaged by NTA Television College Jos to upgrade your skill. Marketing in the era of digital broadcast. Date 13th June to 23rd June 2023, 2 weeks. Drama production workshop. Date 3rd July to 21st July 2023, 3 weeks. Intermediate online news reporting skills. Date 24th July to 11th August 2023, 3 weeks. The course fee for the 2-week course is 120,000 naira, while the fee for the 3-week course is 150,000 naira only. accommodation inclusive. All courses will hold at NTA Television College near Old Government House, Rayfield, Jos. For further enquiries, please call 0803-079-5335 or 0806-980-9807. NTA Television College, Jos, training you to be the best you want to be. Registrar Announcer.
The Council of Our Fathers.
My advice to these young people is please do not take us back to those harrowing days. You probably do not know what it is.
Nigerian youths, let's build our nation together.
We shall defend the nation from terror and all form of criminality that threaten the peace and stability of our country. Security shall be top priority of our administration because neither prosperity nor justice can prevail amid insecurity and violence.
You're still watching Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of NTA. We go back to Lagos and link up with Dr. Abiola Afolabi once more. Madam, let's look at the recruitment process of our political leaders, both from the local government area to the national level. What do you make of the process of recruiting persons who represent sections of Nigerians at the National Assembly or at the State of Assembly, or even at the councillorship positions at the council areas? Are we doing it right? Because we keep getting a situation where some people are recycled, some persons become lords, in their areas, making sure that no other person beats him in elections. So what do you make of our recruitment process in the political terrain?
The political terrain has been one of the major concerns and has been one of the threats to democracy. From what we were saying earlier, there are three things that people of great thoughts had come up with when you want to have a viable, democratic space. One is the fact that there should be sovereignty of the people. The other one is constitutional democracy, and the third one is independent of judiciary. And if we look at all these layers, it also talks to some of the issues that you have raised about. So how do we then define, our political history in such a way that it will be inclusive, not just going to be a system where people come on board, and as people are selected, to lead us. So we're not looking at their credibility, we're not looking at their integrity and their ability, to be able to serve, the Nigerian people. And I think that it is a systemic issue. And so it's not an issue that can be discussed in isolation, because if you have an electoral system that is viable, that is effective, that is efficient, that can, produce a better democratic space, we wouldn't have the kind of problem that we have in the country presently. I know that there have been several attempts to even address the issue of internal democracy. Most of the problems that we are seeing affecting our democratic space today, it's also hint upon the kind of political class that we have and the kind of politics that our political parties play. There's no internal democracy. People are elected or selected because of their loyalty to a particular person and not necessarily their loyalty, to the nation. So it's a garbage in, garbage out thing. There's no way in other countries where you have seen a lot of movement like Kenya and some other places of recent. It's also because they have redirected their political space in such a way that political system is being determined by the environment and the fact that people can make a choice in terms of, so people are talking about independent candidates, which is one of the issues that 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 was raised in the last constitutional review, and I think it's one of the issues that passed. We have gotten to that level because we can no longer trust the political system to be able to provide the kind of democracy that we see. So we want to then begin to rely on independent, candidacy, so that people can also be able to make a choice, so that our choices are not being made by political parties that we cannot trust, by political parties that do not, necessarily reflect, our aspiration as Nigerian people. So that's why we see all the, challenges with the political space. The political party is important, and we need to redefine that political party system for us to be able to move forward, to address the bigger problem of our democratic challenge. If we miss it at election, if we miss it at making a choice of who to govern us, if we elect people that we know don't have credibility, that are fraudulent, there is no way. We can't put something on nothing. So it's what we see, that. And, the political system also limits Nigeria in a big way. So once they have emerged at the political party stage, Nigerians have no option than to look for maybe the best amongst them, and then vote for it. So I think we need to unpack the political party system in Nigeria. We need to unpack the role that people play in making decisions on who they want to lead their countries.
Thank you very much, Akeode Afolabi, for your response to the question. Back to Tony Abolo in our Benin Network Center. Mr. Abolo, I want to again return to the issue of whether or not Nigeria's political class is sufficiently apprised of the essence of democracy and, of course, all the matters that appertain to that full recognition of what democracy truly entails. If your answer is in the negative, that's assuming that is the case, what is it that we can begin to do or expect our political class to do?
Thank you very much. I want to align myself a little bit with Dr. Abiola's position. And that is, okay, if we must address the kind of inefficiencies we are seeing in our political culture, how do we remedy it? One of the concepts of democracy is participation. Are we participating? The more we remove ourselves from the process, the more you are not going to get the quality personnel that goes into selection or going to be appointed or going into elections. Therefore, we must all begin to participate. That is one way to begin to address all the kind of negatives that we are seeing. Then secondly, we hope the conscience of those who are doing constitutional review will be pricked in such a way that we must advance this argument about independent candidature, because we've seen that the loyalties are bound towards certain individuals, the money bags and so on. And so the only way we can break away from that is to advance independent candidature. Then call it the big elephant in the room that we don't want to address and haven't even bothered to address. Although I have a friend, actually a lawyer from Benin City here, who went to institute a case in Abuja about diaspora voting. That is one area that people tend to run away from. And I think when you have people who are not going to be monetized, their consciences won't be swayed either way, but they will look straight at Nigeria. When we have diaspora voting, and you have independent candidature, and we have participation, then the quality will begin to change and get better. Then importantly, we've talked about, okay, people have been toying with the words dividends of democracy. I'd rather send in a word which Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala sent into our political lexicon, which is demographic dividends. And I think that is even to me more important than dividends of democracy. If we're having democratic dividends, then we now see that the youth that even Professor Adetola was even talking about are addressed. The little those in the kindergarten are addressed. Middle age, the youth, the women, the elderly, everybody's addressed. And that is how service will be delivered, and then the quality of our governance will begin to improve. Then another area which is, again, call it my own concern area, which is the media. Incidentally, that's one of those areas I'm trying to address in a book I'm working on, looking at Nigeria mass media and national development. That kind of influence which is missing, and if the media doesn't understand what it should be looking at in terms of good governance and development, we'll have problems. So if we have a mix of a media that is enlightened, that can propel development and policy growth in the country, then you have independent candidature, then you have diaspora voting, and we hope the good conscience of those in the legislature will begin to look at what is good for the country. Then I'm sure we'll get some advancement in in this journey of, call it the democratic journey.
Spoken. We are waiting to read the book. Some of us who are also professionals would like to see the book. I recall what I was taught that there can be no effective development without communication, and that is key. If I understood that properly, I wonder how we got acculturated into the kind of practice that we exhibit in our political space today. Nothing seems to work. One way or another, organize election, and some persons will look for another way to undermine the election. Whatever beautiful policy you put in place for implementation, Nigerians will always have another way of turning things negatively. So we're now talking about remediation process, or what can be done. People who have been acculturated or into doing one thing the same way for over 24 years, how do you get them reorientated, begin to think in the positive direction? How possible is it in a society like ours? And that's why I want to bring you in once more.
You see, the foundation is the nomination of candidates. That is where we misstep. And as a result of that, the people themselves they don't have confidence in the process, because they know that this is the end result from the beginning, before they even start. If we have to do self-reorientation, which is somehow very, very difficult, a national orientation agency has been there. I don't see the impact of it. The problem is in us. It's not even in the law that we have. The law are perfect, but the observance of this law is a problem. And something is wrong with the way we do things. I don't know when we'll start. I don't know where we'll start to change. Because if you go to the remotest part of the country, the emphasis is the affluence of the person they are dealing with. He has money, he doesn't have money. They don't look at your character. They look at what you have. But how you had this is not even a problem, it doesn't matter. Most of the people that are given chieftaincy title in the village, there are people that have affluence, they have money. Even the traditional ruler in some places, I'm from a royal home, in some cases, they don't observe that.
They give titles.
They give titles to people that can afford. That is the problem. Are we in the state of anomy? I don't know. Things are so bad. Nobody respects good character any longer. Not even in the church, not even in the mosque. That is where we are, and it's affecting us negatively. We pray God Almighty. I'm a Muslim, I believe in prayer. I think prayer can help us too. But at the same time, our children, the way we train them from home, we should inculcate some of this discipline in them.
And let me offer this suggestion. Today's Democracy Day. what are we doing to inculcate democracy in our younger generation this day? I believe there should be conferences, seminars, talks and all of that, engaging younger ones in schools, to educate them and tell them why we're doing this, as a way of engaging the younger generation of Nigerians.
In trying to do that, I think the government has tried. When I went to secondary school, there was nothing like civic education. In civic, the curriculum is meant to teach them this value we are talking about. How is it helping us? That is the question.
But Honorable Adamu Mohammed, what my colleague is talking about is when you have a day of celebration, it isn't only for those who have come of age, those who witnessed the June 12 election 30 years ago, or those who are in political power today, but for how do you cascade the knowledge down so that a child who is growing up will attach meaning to June 12th? To say, oh, this is what happened on that particular day. I think that's part of what he's saying. But I want to come back to you very quickly, Honorable Adam, because you have practical experience playing politics. Again, of course, limited in Kogi, where you were majority leader. What do you think can be done and should be done in terms of the reorientation of political actors? That, look, democracy, it doesn't entail power grab. That democracy leads to ends, what we call dividends or what we call, the service delivery and so on. How does that reorientation occur? Because some of the characters you find in the political space, some of them, I say this with apologies, to anyone who might feel offended, just appear not to know what they're doing.
You see, I think legislation can help us. We have enough of it. But specific law directed at changing this anomaly will help us grandiosely. If you are coming to contest election and you believe that it is your loyalty to somebody that is going to earn you that position, we are in trouble. The loyalty should be to the people that you are representing. You are not representing an individual. But if our system does not give so much power to an individual to pick and choose who will represent a ward in the council, a local government as a chairman, if it is the people that are actually electing them, their loyalty would definitely be to the people. But when one singular person is so powerful that he can do and undo, our problem will not be solved. According to, apology to the professor here, a legislator can make a man a woman, and a woman a man. That is what they said in those days. In Britain, we can use the law to remedy some of these problems. I think in the amendment of the Constitution and the Electoral Act next time, something should be specifically done on the primary election, so that the power of that very powerful person can be whittled down. Yeah, it shouldn't have much to do about who should be nominated for a particular position. Then the loyalty will come to the people. If the loyalty is with the people, you know that you have to satisfy them before you are re-elected.
Well, it's also important to know that followership is also part of our challenge in this country, because if you hear from followers, you understand why those people live in affluence. That would be a conversation for another day. But for now, we'd like to close today's edition of the program. It's a special day in Nigeria. We have other programs that also focus on Democracy Day. So at this point, we'd like to appreciate all of you for being here this morning. Professor Victor Adetola, Professor of Political Science at the University of Jos. Thank you for coming. And Honorable Adamu Mohammed, former Majority Leader, Kogi State House of Assembly, and lawyer. We appreciate your being here this morning. Thank you so much. From our Lagos studios, we had Dr. Abiola Akeode Afolabi, founder, Women Advocates Research and Documentation Center, and former chairman, Transition Monitoring Group. Madam, it's been wonderful hosting you this morning on our show. Thank you for coming. And from Benin, we had our professional colleague, Tony Abolo. Tony Abolo, a veteran broadcaster, sociologist, and media consultant. So it's been nice hearing from you this morning. I enjoyed your diction. It's been a pleasure. All right, and what next for us?
Yeah, we'll go over to the
foreign news. Okay.
3-1. Ukraine has said its troops recaptured 3 villages from Russian forces in the southeast, the first liberated settlements it's reported since launching a counteroffensive. Soldiers who said the Ukrainian